Imagine a sprawling city that literally never sleeps. You've got trillions of tiny factories running day and night, constantly churning away. Now think about the massive amount of waste all those factories would produce. If that waste isn't cleared out immediately, the whole city shuts down, right? Well, that city is your body. Welcome to this explainer. Today we are diving into the body's incredible biological water treatment plant, the excretory system. We're going to break down exactly how living things filter out the bad, keep the good, and somehow manage to survive the constant buildup of their own internal pollution. Let's get right into it.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the metabolic waste problem, then look at human excretory organs, jump into the anatomy of a nephron, walk through the 3 steps of filtration, see how urine volume is regulated, and finally look at a really cool twist with excretion in plants.
Starting with part 1, the metabolic waste problem, or as I like to call it, the invisible threat.
So the real danger to our bodies doesn't always come from the outside environment. A lot of times, the villain is created right inside our own cells. As you're sitting here living and breathing, your body is constantly breaking down food to generate energy. But this incredible life process creates byproducts. We're talking about toxic metabolic wastes like urea, uric acid, and excess salts. And these aren't just harmless leftovers. If these specific chemicals are allowed to build up in your bloodstream, they literally become poisonous to your body. So getting rid of them immediately isn't just a, nice to have. It is absolutely critical for your survival.
Now, before we go any further, we need to clear up a massive misconception. This is a classic trip-up, especially in grade 10 biology. People constantly confuse excretion with egestion. Let's clear that up right now. Egestion is just the removal of undigested food waste, feces, from the alimentary canal. It's simply the stuff your body couldn't absorb. Excretion, on the other hand, is the removal of the chemical, cellular waste that were produced inside your body's cells. Basically, egestion is a digestive process, while excretion is a cellular waste removal process. Huge difference.
All right, moving to section 2, human excretory organs, the macroscopic heroes of our story.
Now that we know what kind of toxic waste we're trying to get rid of, let's look at the highly specialized plumbing system our body uses to actually get the job done. The human excretory system has 4 main components. It all starts with a pair of kidneys. These are those famous bean-shaped organs sitting right in your abdomen, one on either side of your backbone. They're the primary filters that clean your blood and form urine. Once that urine is formed, it travels down a pair of ureters. These are long muscular transport tubes that carry the liquid waste down to the urinary bladder. The bladder is basically a muscular sac that acts as a temporary reservoir. It just holds the urine until it's time to let it go, at which point it's expelled from the body through an expulsion tube called the urethra. It's a simple, elegant, and highly effective setup.
Which brings us to section 3, anatomy of a nephron. Let's look at the microscopic battle happening inside. So how do those bean-shaped kidneys actually filter the blood? Well, we need to do a biological zoom deep inside the kidney to find its true structural and functional units. 1 million, or 10 lakh if you prefer. That is exactly how many of these microscopic filtering units, called nephrons, are packed into just one single kidney. You have 2 million of these structures constantly working inside you, filtering your blood drop by drop. It's just crazy when you think about the sheer scale of this biological system.
Let's look at the anatomy of just one of those million nephrons. It's got 2 main parts. First is the Bowman's capsule and the glomerulus. Think of the Bowman's capsule as a tiny, cup-shaped bag sitting at the very top of the nephron. Tucked neatly inside that cup is a tight bundle of blood capillaries, and that's the glomerulus. An arteriole branching directly off your renal artery pumps blood into this capillary bundle under intensely high pressure. And it's exactly this high-pressure environment that kicks off the entire filtration process.
Once the fluid is essentially squeezed out of that high-pressure cup, it enters the second main structure, the tubular part. This is a highly coiled tube extending all the way from the Bowman's capsule and eventually ending in a collecting duct. But here's the brilliant part. This tube is closely surrounded by a complex network of blood capillaries. This physical setup, a tube full of potential waste surrounded by a net of blood vessels, is the perfect stage for the incredible journey of filtration.
Let's see how that works in section 4, the 3 steps of filtration.
This right here is the absolute heart of the curriculum. We are going to follow the chronological journey of a waste molecule as it gets pulled out of your blood. Inside the nephron, urine formation happens in 3 very precise mechanical steps. Step 1 is ultrafiltration, sometimes called glomerular filtration. Step 2 is selective reabsorption.
And step 3 is urine secretion and collection. Let's break down exactly what's happening at each stage.
Okay, step 1, ultrafiltration. Remember that high blood pressure in the glomerulus? It literally forces liquid out of the blood and across the thin walls into the Bowman's capsule. This filtrate contains a mix of things: water, glucose, salts, but also toxic urea and uric acid. Now, notice one key detail here. Large molecules, like your blood cells and proteins, they stay safely behind in the blood because they're simply too big to fit through the biological filter. But we have a problem. That filtrate contains good stuff, like glucose and water, that your body desperately needs to keep. It can't afford to just pee that away. So that brings us to step 2, selective reabsorption. As the liquid travels down that coiled tubular part, the surrounding capillaries intelligently take back the good nutrients. They selectively reabsorb the glucose, amino acids, essential sodium ions, and a major chunk of the water, pulling it all back into the bloodstream. Finally, we hit step 3, secretion. Whatever leftover fluid is still sitting at the end of the tubule is officially called urine. It's packed with dissolved nitrogenous wastes, excess salts, and extra water. This toxic cocktail is secreted into the collecting duct, sent down the ureter, and collected in the bladder to be safely flushed away.
Section 5, regulating urine volume. This is where we see just how smart this system really is.
You see, the kidneys aren't just passive sieves. They're a highly intelligent regulatory system that constantly adapts based on your body's changing conditions. Imagine you're outside playing intense sports on a hot day, sweating buckets, and you just haven't been drinking enough water. Your body is dehydrated. When water is scarce in your body tissues, your kidneys realize this and reabsorb the maximum amount of water possible from the filtrate. The result? You produce a small volume of highly concentrated dark urine. Conversely, if you've been sitting inside all day chugging water, water is abundant. Your kidneys reabsorb much less water, resulting in a large volume of clear, dilute urine.
So, as we just saw, the quantity of water in your tissues heavily dictates urine volume, but it is also regulated by the quantity of dissolved nitrogenous wastes that you need to flush out. If your body has a really high concentration of waste, it simply needs more water to safely dissolve and transport that waste out of the system. And controlling this entire balancing act, specific circulating hormones. These hormones act as the body's messengers, strictly dictating to the nephron tubules exactly how much water and sodium they should reabsorb or let go, entirely based on your current hydration and toxicity levels. It's an absolute masterclass in biological feedback.
Finally, Section 6, excretion in plants. Time for a biological plot twist.
Here's the thing. Plants are living organisms too. They perform respiration, they break down nutrients, and they produce metabolic waste. But they don't have kidneys, they don't have a nervous system, or even blood. So how do they solve the exact same waste problem? Through pure evolutionary creativity. Without a centralized organ, plants use a bunch of brilliant, decentralized strategies. For gaseous wastes, like excess oxygen from photosynthesis or CO2 from respiration, they just vent it directly out through tiny pores called stomata in their leaves, or lenticels in their stems. For solid and liquid wastes, they get incredibly clever. They can lock toxic waste safely away inside large cellular vacuoles, effectively quarantining it. Or they just drop the waste entirely by accumulating it in old leaves, dead bark, or ripe fruits, and then physically shedding those parts right off the plant. They also convert certain metabolic wastes into complex substances like gums and resins, storing them out of the way in old inactive wood tissues called xylem. And if all else fails, plants can directly excrete certain chemical wastes right out of their roots and into the surrounding soil. It is an absolutely fascinating, totally decentralized system of waste management.
Which leaves us with this final thought to ponder. How does cellular life manage its own survival through such brilliant biological engineering? Whether it's a million microscopic high-pressure water treatment plants inside your kidneys, or a tree creatively turning its own metabolic waste into tree resin and falling leaves, the resilience of living organisms is truly something to marvel at. Life doesn't just passively exist in its environment, it masterfully manages its own internal chaos to thrive. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer on the excretory system. Keep marveling at the microscopic engineering happening inside you right now. See you next time.